It is Monday, September 26th here in Draft Shark Studios in Rochester, New York. Welcome to the Week 3 Recap Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Schauf. With me, as always, for these recap pods is Adam Krautwurst, the studious one from the intro video that you just watched if you're on YouTube with us. Adam, how's Week 3 treating you so far?
Terrible. It's another week of my team doesn't want to score fantasy points. It's great if you've got like Mac Hollins and Zay Jones and Russell Gage and Romeo Doubs and Zay McKenzie, like all these receivers that no one started. No, it was another terrible week for my teams. I'm doing well on those underdog pick'ems, but other than that, it was not a great week.
That's right. And if you are having a terrible week, there's still time for you to try to get some of your money back on Underdog Pick'ems. You can click the link at the bottom of this podcast, whether you're on YouTube or anywhere else, and you can make your first deposit. You can get it matched 100% up to $100 on Underdog. Or if you don't want to click the link, just use promo code DraftSharks. If you're too lazy to make the click, it's probably more effort to type in DraftSharks, but whatever works for you. We want to get you some free money to play on there. You can get free money to play on Sleeper too. Same deal. Click the link at the bottom or go there and use the DraftSharks promo code. We'll match your deposit there as well. So going to the games that did already happen in week 3 on Sunday, we're going to skip the Thursday one, but Panthers 22, Saints 14, the first one on our list. And speaking of terrible, we got Baker Mayfield, 12 for 25, 170 yards. He is rendering DJ Moore nearly non-existent. 6 targets, 1 catch in this game. Christian McCaffrey, Robbie Anderson, 4 targets apiece. Nobody on the team caught more than 2 passes. I mean, it was a nice game for Christian McCaffrey overall, but Baker Mayfield's play is basically making nobody else usable in Carolina right now.
Baker Mayfield stinks. I mean, it's incredible that anyone thought he was the number 1 pick in that draft, because it's just all the things that, the arm strength, the no mobility in the pocket, all that stuff. I mean, he's not even able to get ball. DJ Moore's running wide open on third down. He's throwing it over his head. But like you said, CMC was able to get some fantasy points. He's still right now is RB 17, so it's not like he's even a start, an RB1. And so I mean, it's just he's really going to hold back this Panthers offense. Baker Mayfield is, unless there's always the chance that because he came in late to camp and all that stuff, maybe there's something there to that, but. I think overall, this whole offense is just going to struggle.
I'm surprised because he looks like Sam Darnold so far. So they have Arizona coming up this week. If there is going to be a rebound, Arizona is the one to allow it to happen. We'll get to their game against the Rams in a little bit. But on the other side of that, 49ers, Rams, Buccaneers in 3 straight games. So Baker Mayfield's got to look really good in week 4 to make anybody besides Christian McCaffrey a lineup option beyond that. And I know the DJ Moore I was wary of heading into last week. I was trying to give him benefit of the doubt for one more game. It's going to be tough to give benefit of the doubt for week 4 on close decisions. Like we're talking mid to low wide receiver 3 territory. It's going to be tough to take DJ Moore over the other guy.
Yeah, Moore's definitely benchable now. 5 targets, the 2 carries is nice, but it's not good enough. 5 targets from Baker Mayfield is just not going to cut it. No, like you said, no more than 2 catches. It's a really gross offense right now. Like if Baker doesn't have all day to throw, he can't hit anybody. I mean, Christian McCaffrey saw 4 targets. He should probably see more than that as well. 25 carries for him, but again, we don't want carries. We want targets from everybody, including our running backs.
Yeah, we'll take 13 carries and like 10 targets for Christian.
Right.
Instead.
Right.
On the Saints side, Jameis Winston wasn't very good either, but we can use Jameis Winston bad because he helps his team fall behind, throws a pair of picks, fumbles the ball twice, did recover both of those, but still, sloppy Jameis Winston finishes up with 353 passing yards. So that's the kind of bad quarterbacking we like in fantasy. And I'm sure you especially like that with Chris Olave going off again, led the team in targets by a wide margin, helped by Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry going down in this one, but Michael Thomas played most of the game.
Yeah, no, Olave looks like a stud, and we knew, Olave is a downfield threat, and that's where Jameis likes to go. The offense was moving the ball pretty well. They would have they would drive down the field and then have a big sack on third down. They would drive down the field, fumble, missed field goals. Like they were moving the ball. Jameis was was moving the ball pretty well down the field. Olave looks awesome. Kamara, he doesn't look bad. Like, he still looks explosive. Saw 6 targets, saw 15 carries. So it's just his targets and his carries were in the right spot of the field. Like, he didn't have any goal line work or anything. So he finishes RB 37, which is terrible. But I think he's a buy based on like if he's going to get 15 carries and 6 targets every week, I would love that. Especially in an offense that can move the ball. So he would be a buy for me. He doesn't look like run down or anything. So that's a guy that I would be targeting.
Yeah, I would agree that he's unlucky to have Mark Ingram take the team's 1 rushing touchdown. He's going to catch more than 2 of 7 targets if he's getting that number of targets usually. Probably more of a hold than a buy for me because I don't totally trust either the Saints or Jameis Winston supporting a running back. But, I agree with the sentiment that it's not time to give up on Kamara just because he didn't deliver the fantasy points yesterday. I like the usage more than I hate the lack of production for this one. And Olave is a good example of somebody that, you want to say stick with DJ Moore, but if it's my team, I'm playing Chris Olave in week 4 against Minnesota over DJ Moore against anybody.
Yeah, I've made the mistake in the past. I think we talked about this last week of not, or maybe I was on the deep end of waiting too long to start these rookie receivers. But man, that's a perfect example. DJ Moore or Chris Olave with a nice matchup, especially if there is injuries in that Saints receiving core, like Olave all day long. They have a quarterback that likes to push it downfield. He's capable, and just DJ Moore's got issues.
And, I think that when you're making a decision like this, it's always possible that you decide the wrong way. And we'll talk about plenty other receivers that people were not starting that put up numbers in those over those who didn't. And to me, the final tiebreaker, I guess, if you're just having trouble getting over the hurdle of sitting the guy that you drafted early is if you were deciding between Chris Olave and DJ Moore right now, then if you wind up choosing Moore and Olave outscores him, what you did was ignore what happened the past 2 weeks and start the guy that you drafted earlier. On the other hand, if you start Olave and Moore outscores him, then something really changed versus what the Panthers have done to this point. So to me, in that case, it's not a wrong choice, even if you wind up with the guy who outscores the one that you played. I think after 3 weeks, there's enough that we need to not ignore what's going on and stick too hard to where we drafted players.
Completely agree. Yeah, it's time to start doing that earlier, especially for me. I got a couple of teams where I just started the wrong guys and I waited too long. Granted, it's only been week 3, but now we're getting into it here, week 4. The writing's on the wall for a lot of these players. Just go with what's happening in 2022.
In 2 cases yesterday, I started Marcus Mariota over Russell Wilson, and I'm happy that I did. Bears 23, Texans 20 the next game here. David Montgomery. Adam, I think every single time that I bet anything on David Montgomery, whether it's putting him in a DFS lineup, whether it's putting him in underdog pick'ems, any time that I'm like, all right, even David Montgomery can't screw this one up, then I pop him in and he hurts something. He went down in the first quarter of this game. Khalil Herbert throws on a cape, carries 20 times, 157 yards, 2 touchdowns, another 2 catches for 12 yards. So, if I could have put Bears running back in those slots instead of David Montgomery, I would have been awesome. As it is, I wonder if it's the kind of game where Khalil Herbert's going to command work even once David Montgomery is back healthy.
I don't think that that's the case, but I could feel your anger through the tweet when you were talking about that. But yeah, it's I don't think he will, because last year he was Herbert was this good, and then Montgomery came back and he kind of went back to the bench or whatever. But I think that Herbert looks great. This is one of those 0 RB handcuff guys that we weren't dropping, that we were holding on to, waiting for an injury like this. Montgomery, they were saying, we haven't heard of, the coach says he's day to day. Doctors watching the video say it could be, a high ankle, 4 to 6, stuff like that. So we'll see. But I agree. I think Herbert deserves to get some run in there. Montgomery isn't bad by any stretch, but why would you leave Herbert on the bench when you have one playmaker on this team? Get Herbert out there. And they're only using their running backs, right? They're not throwing it, so you might as well let Herbert get involved.
Yeah, it could at least turn into something like James Robinson, Travis Etienne with Jacksonville in terms of how they're used. If you have Khalil Herbert, I mean, obviously Khalil Herbert should be owned everywhere heading into this coming week. If you have him, smile. Consider shopping him to the David Montgomery owner in your league and see just how much you can get from that person. But it's definitely not a must-sell Khalil Herbert type of situation.
Agreed.
Justin Fields, another 17 pass attempts in this one, running that triple option offense. His 3-week total for passing yards would have tied for 8th among week 3 quarterbacks. You take all 3 games of Justin Fields passing so far, he would have tied for 8th. So far in week 3, we'll see what Cooper Rush and Daniel Jones do. Maybe they'll push him down further. Fields had 47 rushing yards in this game. I mean, regardless of what you think of Justin Fields as a player or a passer or whatever, an NFL team can't go like this. This doesn't work.
Yeah, no, it doesn't work. It's not working. And it's not like they're running Fields to that. I mean, he had five carries. It's not like he was in the game plan as far as running the ball. They're just terrible. They're inept. Their O-line stinks. Their skill guys are I mean, their skill guys should still be doing better than this. I mean, Darnell Mooney, 5 targets. That's not going to cut, especially on a team that stinks, like playing from behind and stuff like that. Now, this is the Texans game wasn't that, but just the inability. Cole Kmet 3 targets. It's just so stupid. Like, I don't know how the coaches sit around like, yeah, this is what we're going to do. But it almost looks like they don't like Fields. They're tanking for a top 5 pick. It's what it looks like. So, this is what it's going to be all year. It's time to move on from any passing game players on the Bears.
And if you dislike Justin Fields as a coach enough that you think your team should go like 67-33 run pass, then just bench him for Trevor because you're wasting time otherwise. Darnell Mooney, 35% target share. Cole Kmet, second round targets, but those things don't matter if your team is throwing less than 20 pass attempts a week. So there's nothing you can do with this offense until something changes drastically. On the other side, we did get more positive change for Damien Pierce, 20 carries in this one, 80 yards, touchdown. That's nothing big. I would not be surprised if he doesn't get a whole lot of 20 carry games this season. So I think there's some sell potential here, but I'm not saying this is going to be Damien Pierce's best game of the season. Get out while you can.
No, and it's just so nice to see like stuff makes sense. Like, okay, this game's gonna be close. Houston's gonna be involved. This is a game that they can win. They should hand off the ball a bunch of times to Damien Pierce, and they did, and he looked really good, and he scored, and he was bouncing off would-be tacklers, and it all made sense. So if you had Damien Pierce and you didn't start him, well, that shame on you, because this was one of the weeks to absolutely want to start him. So yeah, he looked great. Burkhead obviously stealing targets there, fine, whatever. Pierce still saw 2 targets. I think he had both of them were caught. So Pierce is definitely the best running back here. Again, it's not a great team, not a great offense, but weeks like this are why you have Damien Pierce.
And he should mess around probably RB20 to RB25 range in our rankings pretty much weekly going forward. Next week is the Chargers, Jaguars after that. I mean, Chargers just allowed 100 rushing yards to James Robinson, so that should be at least a decently startable spot for Damien Pierce, and we'll see going forward. But yeah, we got to like the rushing role that he has taken over after week 1 went the way it did. And, after that game, we had Lovie Smith saying that's not how he wanted it to work. And you say, well, why did it work like that if that's not how you want it to happen? So it's been good to see a correction in that area over the past 2 weeks.
And I think he fumbled twice too. I don't think he lost the fumbles, maybe lost 1, but he fumbled twice. So it's nice to see them go back to him and not just bench him, like some old school coach. Like let the kid run.
I agree with that. Colts 20 over the Chiefs 17. This was surprising. It's one of those games that reminds you just how close all these teams are to each other. It's really a lot closer in the end than what we want it to be. On the Chiefs side, rebound game for JuJu Smith-Schuster, 5 catches, 89 yards, his 8 targets tied for Travis Kelce with the team lead. The targets are fairly concentrated at the top here. 8 apiece for Kelce and JuJu, 7 for MVS, 5 for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And to me, Adam, he's the one most worth talking about here because he caught all 5 of his targets in this game. He also ran for a touchdown from 1 yard out. That was part of a 7-carry, 0 rushing yard game with that touchdown and those 5 catches. He played 8 fewer snaps than Jerick McKinnon, who matched him in carries and ran ahead of him in pass routes. I would say try as hard as you can to trade Clyde Edwards-Helaire right now because his fantasy scoring to this point is completely fake.
I love it. His scoring, to me, he's more of a hold because of that. Like, he's not getting the touches and he's still producing. Like, he might get the touches eventually. Injury, it's almost like he's a handcuff to himself. Like, if there's an injury around him, his it'll kind of his production will explode because he'll start getting more touches. He's also getting he's getting goal line work, he's getting catches, and that's big in an offense like this. Now, this offense is severely struggling. Shocker, right? When you lose Hall of Famer to tight, nobody saw this coming, right? The lose Hall of Famer to Tyreek Hill, and all of a sudden they can't score points. But yeah, I could see if you can get a nice offer for CEH, because right now, the running back landscape with injuries starting to creep in and guys just not producing. I mean, at the other end of this, you see JT is RB21, so it depends on what you can get for him. But to me, expected fantasy points versus what they actually scored, it's like, I don't know, expected fantasy points don't pay the bills. But and again, when it comes to running backs too, you want guys that are getting targets, which he had 5 Patrick Mahomes targets is awesome. And they're getting work inside the 10, and he gets work inside the 10. Maybe not all of it, but enough. And he's been efficient. Like, he's been super, super efficient. So I'm okay with holding him. And you get an injury to McKinnon or Pacheco, and he's an RB, a week in, week out RB2. He's been borderline RB1 now with all his, he scores like every single week. So yeah, I'm still okay holding CEH.
Sweet. It sounds like I can trade CEH to you, maybe.
Let's do it. Let's make it happen.
He is third among all running backs in PPR scoring right now, with tonight's game yet to go.
So good.
And 13th among running backs for week 3. So that's why I would be trying very hard to sell him right now, trying to see exactly how many routes. So, you mentioned that he is getting targets.
17
among
routes.
All running backs, he's tied for 33rd in total routes, tied with Cordarrelle Patterson. So we've been kind of complaining to this point that Cordarrelle Patterson's not getting more passing game work than he is. So to me, that's a good, I don't know, way to put into view where CEH is. It's good that he's getting the ball, but he has definitely benefited from being in the Chiefs offense. And we knew that would be the case. That was the biggest selling point, was that he was Chiefs running back, but he's been much more of one of the Chiefs running backs than the Chiefs first running back versus what I expected heading into the season.
Yeah, no, I get it. And again, it's like, if he was this efficient the first 2 years, he'd have been unbelievable when he was getting all of the work, so maybe he's just healthier this year, and they're just, like you said, I mean, he was second on the team in snaps at running back, second in routes run, and tied for first in carries with McKinnon. So he's been a great 0 RB or hero RB pick so far, kind of keeping those teams afloat. So yeah, but yeah, no, I could see him having 1 or 2 point games for sure.
Sell. Mecole Hardman, before we move away from the Chiefs side, close behind JuJu and MVS in routes in this game, just 1 target. I think that's a reminder of how this situation could be spread around. The opportunities could be spread around. I think it'll continue to be JuJu and MVS in targets ahead of Hardman, even if the playing time sticks around. But, that's a reason that we shouldn't be shocked if next week either JuJu or MVS has 4 targets and Mecole Hardman has 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah, I think they had the week and a half off. It's nice to see JuJu lead the team in targets, tied with Kelsey. It was kind of a weird start for the Chiefs. They didn't have the ball. They muffed a punt early on in the game, I think, on their first attempt to get it. And so they were kind of playing from behind from the beginning. So that kind of helped JuJu there. But yeah, I think they're building that rapport. He had a great catch and run on a 3rd down drag route. So it's nice to see him get a little bit more involved in the passing game.
On the Colts offense, nothing impressive. I mean, obviously impressive that they won, but Matt Ryan avoided interceptions in this one, still took 5 sacks. He fumbled twice, lost 1 of those fumbles. Both his touchdown passes went to Jelani Woods, who was wearing an OJ Howard mask for this one.
That's right. Yeah, Jelani Woods looks like Mo Alley Cox out there too. I couldn't tell. Who's who. But yeah, the Colts started weird on offense. They were throwing screen passes to Pittman a lot. Like that's not his game. I think he had like 2 early screen pass catches for like negative yards. That's not his thing. But man, he got going later on in that game. Pittman looks really really good. And when Ryan has time to throw, like when he doesn't have to move and be athletic, he's making the right reads, throwing to the right guys. So this could be a sneaking good offense. Pierce looked really good too. So yeah, the receiving core still goes through Pittman, nine targets. If he continues to get 9, 10, 11 targets a game, he's gonna pay off at his like wide receiver, maybe 10 to 12 ADP.
Yeah, Pittman's not matching the target hogs from other places, Cooper Kupp, what AJ Brown did early, but we can take 24 to 25% target share from Michael Pittman here, especially if the team ends up throwing quite a bit going forward like it has so far. So yeah, we like Michael Pittman coming back and clearly leading in targets. Like I said, Jelani Woods was 3rd among Colts tight ends in playing time here. So you should not be picking him up or using him going forward. And you should trust none of them at this point, because it could just rotate among them who gets opportunities. Naheem Hines, 2nd on the team in targets with 6. Still the same role that he's been playing so far, though, well behind Jonathan Taylor in rushing usage, and Jonathan Taylor was right behind him in targets with 5, tying Alec Pierce. So really, it's Michael Pittman, it's Jonathan Taylor, despite 2 straight disappointing weeks of production, and then it's nothing else for the Colts.
Yeah, it's disappointing for JT too to get 21 carries against not a stout Chiefs defense and get 5 targets in a game where they're playing close the whole game, and it's still having he's RB21 going into the Monday night game. I mean, it's just been two kind of duds for JT here weeks 2 and week 3. So not a great fantasy start for him this season. He's getting the volume. It's just not happening for him.
Yeah, not a whole lot you can do, but it's certainly disappointing through the first 3 weeks. Speaking of disappointing, Dolphins 21-19 over the Bills. Bills ran 90 offensive plays to Miami's 39. Time of possession was 40 minutes and 40 seconds for Buffalo, 19-20 for Miami. We had the 1 missed field goal for the Bills, 4 fumbles, but they only lost 1 of them. Penalty yardage was significantly in Miami's favor, 52 yards for the Bills in penalties versus 20 for the Dolphins. I mean, otherwise, like watching this game, it felt kind of even, but looking at these numbers afterward, it really shouldn't have wound up being that even between the 2 teams.
Yeah, no, if you look at the box score, you're like, oh, the Bills won by 30 points. Allen goes for 450 total yards, no interceptions. How do they not win this game by a million? But yeah, it was penalties. It was mistakes. Allen gets called for a unnecessary roughness because he got hit in the junk and he was defending himself. But Allen also fumbled inside of their own 10, which is why the Dolphins are able to get that 1 touchdown. So yeah, all in all, great kind of fantasy day for Allen, but like not for anybody else. I mean, no one was starting Zach Moss. Please, Gabe Davis dropped a touchdown. Matt Milano dropped a pick 6. Not that matters here for fantasy, but yeah, it was just, I think that the heat was tough for them down there. I think by the end of the game, they were just exhausted. I think that's why Allen bounced that game winner to McKenzie. I think everyone was just wasted. So yeah, if you're going to get 90 plays out of this offense, normally you would think, Gabe and Stefan would smash, but it was really just Allen and a lot to the running backs. Out of the backfield. Singletary had a bunch of catches. How many targets did Singletary?
11.
Yeah, 10. Mine says 10. Yeah, 10 or 11 targets, which is great. Great for him. But that's not generally going to happen. They were playing from behind most of the second half, so not a ton to really take away from here. Other than the Bills should have won by double digits.
I mean, I agree with it's tough to take a whole lot away from this. My first reaction in looking back over the numbers is, where did those 11 targets for Devin Singletary come from? And the answer is, it's not really as crazy as it seems. 63 pass attempts for Josh Allen's the first thing. So yeah. 17.5% target share. I mean, that's high. It's not normally going to be that high for Devin Singletary, but it's not a ridiculous number. his route rate was actually down slightly versus week 2. He ran a route on 66.7% of Josh Allen's dropbacks in week 2. Week 3, that was down slightly to 61.6%, but obviously 73 routes. So there were just huge volume for everybody. So the takeaway for me on Devin Singletary is, don't expect 11 targets again, but he's the guy in the backfield again for now, at least. After playing time was pretty close in week 1, it has shifted toward being much more Devin Singletary over the past 2 weeks. And, it's still going to be a pass leaning offense, but it's not normally going to be the 80-20 that it was against Miami. So Singletary is becoming somebody that we can use a little bit more comfortably, like in the range where we're looking at the Patriots running backs or maybe Cordero Patterson, just depending on what reality shows for him over the coming weeks.
Yeah. And again, I think a lot of it today had to do with like Diggs was cramping. They lost Jake Kumro early on in the game. They didn't have the bodies. Everyone was exhausted. So normally, like at the end of the game, Diggs wasn't getting anything. And at the end of this game, it was Josh throwing to the running backs. I mean, even there was a James Cook sighting today yesterday with 5 targets. So that's generally not going to happen. But Singletary, yeah, as far as percentage wise, he's getting a nice amount of targets. He's just never going to score because he's not very good. And Allen generally scores down inside the 5 when they do score.
And I get the issues too. When I'm in Florida, I don't want to do anything outside either.
That's right.
Isaiah McKenzie,
unless I'm by the pool.
Right. I would have to be in it. I would have to be in the water to do anything. Isaiah McKenzie, you mentioned 9 targets in this game, 7 for 76 and a touchdown. That was just 14.3% target share. So similar to Devin Singletary, he got pumped up by there just being a ton of passes thrown and, bodies falling in the heat.
Right.
So don't take too much away from Isaiah McKenzie here. Don't think, okay, McKenzie's a starter going forward. It was a goofy kind of game for volume that just kind of blew everybody up. On the other side, it was goofy low pass volume. I already mentioned the play volume for Miami, but considering the game situation, considering that it should have been a shootout, considering the two teams. And when you look at the close score, you figure it's shootout conditions, but it was just weird the way it all played out with turnovers and penalties. So it was still Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill leading targets for Miami. They were low because they just didn't throw the ball that much. Chase Edmonds scored twice, but he only carried 6 times, and he was still beaten in playing time by Raheem Mostert. So we don't take this one as a swing back to Chase Edmonds either. My biggest takeaway from the Miami side, Adam, is apparently a back injury can make you woozy.
Don't even get me started. As soon as he came back in the game, which I'm not going to complain about because Tua stinks. Like, fine, bring Tua out here so we can smash him again. But like, have you ever had your back lock up, Matt? Because I have. You're not coming back from that either. Okay, your back lock's up. You're done. Like, this guy, his back never bothered him the rest of the game. Like, stop it. They gave him some smelling salts and got him back out there. Same thing with Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs 2 years ago before they played the Bills. Guy gets a concussion. No, he's good to go next week. Like, yeah, okay, whatever. But yeah, no, when my back locks up, I'm done for 2 weeks. Okay, so, but I'm not an elite athlete like these guys are.
I mean,
but yeah.
But not only that, but how have you ever had your back lock up and then you're like, whoa,
right?
Like,
no, maybe that's why like, his legs weren't moving, but like, yeah, he was clearly like out of it.
I mean, come on, who are you trying to kid with that?
No, so stupid. But yeah, it was like you said, it was a weird game for them. Miami didn't have the ball. One of their drives started inside the Bills' 10-yard line, so that was a short, quick drive. And I think and this is as much as I crushed Leslie Frazier for 13 seconds last year, like this shows like Bills were without their 4 top secondary players, 2 starting defensive linemen, and they were still able to hold this passing game in check for most of the game. I mean, the one deep ball to Jalen Waddle was he had 8 seconds to throw and crow hopped into a 50-yarder. Like, if he didn't have all that time to throw, the secondary is going to be fine moving forward once it gets healthy. I know, kind of referencing the not having Micah Hyde for the rest of the year, but I think they're going to be okay. They were able to shut Tyreek Hill down in this game, and I'm sure people were playing him like crazy in DFS.
And I mean, certainly the pass rush is going to help with that too, where that'll help you deal with any secondary deficiencies. So yeah, I think it was encouraging, to see them perform without those safeties, without Dane Jackson. We'll see where they go from there. Anything else from that game?
No, that's it.
Vikings 28, Lions 24 next up. Dalvin Cook, a shoulder injury in this one. He at least gave us the fantasy numbers we needed before leaving the game. Would have gotten more if not for that. We're going to have to watch the injury this week. The early word is that the team is expecting he'll play with a brace on it in week 4. Obviously, we'll have to watch and see what actually happens there. But, just like Khalil Herbert, Adam, this is why Alexander Mattison should be rostered at least in any league of 12 plus teams and probably most leagues of 10 plus.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why he was like a 10th round, 9th round pick when people knew he was going to be a 0 whenever he didn't play. But it always makes me interesting too. Like, I don't know who the Vikings play next week, but why wouldn't you just rest him knowing that you have a Alexander Mattison who's a baller, right? Who can absolutely do a lot of the things that Dalvin Cook can do. So that'll be interesting. Him playing with a brace on, but Cook's not done it before. It's just so weird how a guy's like shoulder can just keep popping out, and he's fine the following week. So we'll see. We'll follow that during the week.
I mean, I saw a police officer have his shoulder pop out, and then he just rammed it back into a wall and went back to work. So it's not just
there you go.
Players.
It's easy.
Justin Jefferson's 6 targets here are worth noting. I mean, I'm not going to take this game and say I'm worried about Justin Jefferson, but we had 41 pass attempts from Kirk Cousins, only 6 targets for Jefferson. We had 8 apiece for Adam Thielen and KJ Osborne, 6 for Irv Smith. So, I mean, I say it's noteworthy. I think just in that it's not always going to be Justin Jefferson's week. There are offenses where, Stephon Diggs, even though he didn't have a great week, he had 11 targets. Nobody else had more than him for the Bills yesterday. We did have 2 Vikings who had more than Jefferson. We had 1 other who matched him. So, just maybe it's a little bit less. Everything's running through Jefferson and a little bit more. They also have other guys that can play.
Yeah, they have other guys that can play for sure. I mean, generally, I'm the guy that's like, when your stud doesn't get the work he deserves, you generally lose. Now, the Vikings were able to kind of pull this one out, I think. And they were still scoring too. So, like you said, they have a lot of talent. It's nice to see Thielen Thielen is one of those guys. It's not going to do much between the 20s, but you get him inside the red zone. Him and Kirk Cousins have a history of just always being able to connect in there. So Jefferson's touchdown rate might go down this year. He's going to have to rely more on those deep scores because whenever Thielen's healthy, he's certainly a problem inside the 10-yard line.
Mm-hmm. KJ Osborne had those 8 targets, like I mentioned, solidly behind Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen in playing time, but also solidly ahead of Irv Smith. So operating like the kind of wide receiver 3 that we were hoping he would be, not somebody that we're going to be starting week to week, but somebody who is an option when we're hard up. Irv Smith had those 6 targets that matched Jefferson in this one. He was still right about 60% route rate, 2nd straight game there. So, I mean, it's a level where he's okay, where he's usable, but he's also not somebody that you can feel good about putting into a lineup. And it's not normally going to be to that level of targets because we're not usually going to get 41 plus pass attempts from Kirk Cousins. He was involved early though. Did have 4 first half targets at Irv Smith here.
Yeah. It's nice to see that for him for sure. Again, when those like tight ends, 10 through 20, it's like a lot of teams have 2 of them, right? And you're trying to decide which one to start. So, I mean, this might have been one of those games where, he might not see 6 targets for 3 games, so this might have been one of those games to try to get those targets. But yeah, it's just going to be a hit and miss with Irv Smith.
On the Lions side, DeAndre Swift also has a shoulder injury. Sounds like it's a shoulder sprain that might cost him further time. Was apparently not moving his left arm much after the game. So that's on top of the ankle sprain that was already like limiting his usage last week. We saw the results yesterday. Jamal Williams had a huge game, 20 carries, scored twice. That's already his second 2-touchdown game through 3 weeks this season. Another running back who should be owned everywhere at this point. I mean, he was a little bit less of a, you got to have him than Alexander Mattison and who else were we talking about? Alexander Mattison and Khalil Herbert. But actually, that's not true. I think Jamal Williams was in kind of the same neighborhood as Khalil Herbert because we talked about in preseason. He was somebody that's relevant to the offense, not to fantasy necessarily, even when Swift is in the lineup, and then gets that boost when Swift goes down. So far, we've been seeing at least what we expected from Jamal Williams if you held that belief in him. And obviously, he gets a big boost if Swift misses any further game time.
Yeah, exactly. I think he is too. I think Swift is going to miss some game time. And Jamal Williams is going to be awesome. While he's going to get all the goal line work. He's going to that line is so good. Jamal Williams doesn't have to be even an average running back. I mean the I forget what the number is, but their yards per carry before the running backs are even getting touched by anybody was elite. So he's able to just score 2 touchdowns every game as a backup, as a handcuff. So it's like it's going to be really it's going to be he's a great 0 RB guy. He's going to be easy to put into lineups as long as DeAndre Swift misses time. So and his Craig Reynolds was the backup there, but Craig Reynolds is obviously worth a pickup if Swift misses time. And maybe is Justin Jackson still hanging around this roster?
I don't think so. I think he got cut. Okay. I'm not certain.
Any running back they have on this team right now is worth adding, because again, you're another injury from Jamal Williams away from having a guy that's going to go in there and produce behind this line.
Yeah, let's see exactly who is on this roster, right? So we do still have Justin Jackson on the roster, Craig Reynolds, and then Swift and Williams are the only 2 other guys on the active roster. We have, let's see, practice squad. We have Lamar Jefferson on the practice squad. So that's it.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's it. So Justin Jackson's worth a little dollar bid this week if you could sneak that in there.
Deeper leagues we're talking, of course, here.
Right.
Josh Reynolds had the big day among receivers, led with 10 targets, 6 catches, 96 yards. Nothing changed in the roles, though. I think the takeaway for me here, Adam, is DJ Chark is not ahead of Josh Reynolds in terms of what we should expect and the way the team is using him. I think that unless you need either of these guys to be an option for you week to week, I'd rather have Jameson Williams at this point, because we've seen enough to know that Josh Reynolds and DJ Chark are not likely to be, big time week to week performers. So if it's just bench fodder, if it's just somebody that I'm holding for upside, at this point, I would rather stash Jameson Williams just in case late in the season they really want to get him heavily involved, because I don't think there's a ton of upside to either of the other 2 guys.
No, there isn't. Especially like if it was just one of them, fine. They're just certainly worth it. But they're both like the same deep ball type players on this team, medium to deep routes. And if they're going to be splitting that, both of them played the same amount of snaps with 62, almost ran the same amount of routes, 39 to 37, so it's really just like Amon-Ra and then Hawkinson at tight end, although he scored, but he only had four targets. So he's even tough to start at this point, but they're spreading the ball around. They're running the ball well. They're a well-balanced team.
Mm-hmm. Ravens 37, Patriots 26. According to NFL Next Gen Stats, Lamar Jackson leads the league in passing EPA versus the blitz this year. And that EPA is expected points added. So, a measure of what a guy is actually adding your team in terms of whether you're likely to score points. On plays where he's blitzed, threw 3 touchdown passes against the blitz against the Patriots. That was the second straight game in which he threw 3 touchdown passes against the blitz, according to Next Gen Stats. Also topped 100 yards rushing for the second straight game. So, I mean, Lamar Jackson has been absolutely everything that you were hoping he would be if you drafted him, and even more. And that's, despite facing a New England defense, that's probably going to wind up being among the better defenses that he faces this year.
Yeah, he's been amazing. He was one of the reasons why you didn't, especially I hate to say it, why you didn't take, a quarter like a guy like Josh Allen, just waited to take Lamar as the quarterback 3 or 4, and why you take a quarterback in the top 6 and don't, like, we're going to talk about Jalen Hurts later, and even it's these guys have such a cheat code. For this team, over 100 yards rushing. That's just insane. I wish it would translate to, I know Bateman has scored, week 1 and week 2, but 4 targets yesterday. It's just not enough. We need more, especially in that game where they score 40 something points in this game. Like you got to have Bateman. You got to get Bateman more involved in the passing game. I can't argue with Mark Andrews' 13 targets though.
Yeah. I mean, it's annoying as a Bateman owner to watch, Mark Andrews get 45% of the targets, but it's like AJ Brown in week 1. It was annoying to have Devonte Smith or Dallas Goedert in that game. But you just have to tell yourself that that's not going to happen most of the time. We at least knew going into this one, there was a chance that Bateman would have a tough game. The Patriots, even with kind of revolving defensive backs, they tend to be pretty good against the pass year to year. So it's not a shocking spot for Rashard Bateman to have a quiet game. I think that, the positive to it is even with just 2 catches and 4 targets, he still did get to 59 yards. So he's been over 20 yards per catch in every game so far. So, I mean, like, it would be nice if we were getting 20-25% target share every week, but we're at least, getting this guy and his quarterback who are showing the explosive potential for whenever the ball does go his way.
And then freaking Devin Duvernay, the guy's he score again. This guy, he's just, how are we losing touchdowns to Devin Duvernay? But you're right about Bateman. Like, he's gonna have one of those games. Hopefully it's on like prime time too, and we can all just enjoy it, where he's gonna have 12 targets, 8 catches for 200 yards, so it's coming. It's just frustrating. And again, it's not that, at least it makes sense. Like, Andrews is a stud. Andrews should be getting 13 targets a game. I just wish Bateman was in the 8 to 10 range every single week.
I think it'd be closer to that if we played this game through, 20 times or whatever. So, it's a frustrating game. We're going to be frustrated by something every week. There's at least
That's right. That's right.
There's at least something that makes sense here. J.K. Dobbins made his season debut in this one, and his usage was nearly identical to Justice Hill's. 7 carries for Dobbins, 23 yards on those, 2 targets, caught them both for 17 yards. I would expect his role to grow. I would expect that he's not going to be splitting with Justice Hill every week. No idea, though, how quickly that changes. And, I mean, like I said, heading into the season, I would expect that J.K. Dobbins will spend all year sharing more work than his drafters would like him to.
Yeah, it is encouraging to see the 15 routes run. For him. It's encouraging to see that leading the backfield in targets. So that's nice to see. And I didn't catch the. I don't. Were they splitting the whole way through this game? Or did Justice Hill kind of get a bunch of carries at the end of this game? Because I'm not really sure 7 to 6 if they were alternating. They probably were. But yeah, no, they eased him in. Like we thought they were probably going to do. But yeah, Dobbins will come around soon, hopefully, in games where he gets obviously some double-digit carries. If he can get double-digit carries and 3 or 4 targets, now we're talking.
Yeah, I don't know how it differed by time in the game. I'm sure we'll dig more into that as the week goes on. But we all expected them to ease J.K. Dobbins into this. So certainly the usage in this game is not surprising, and he should not have been in fantasy starting lineups right away. But it's nice to see him get through healthy, nice to see him do some things, get involved. We'll see where it goes going forward. Also nice to see the team deactivate Kenyon Drake for this game, play Mike Davis for 1 snap, because that's where those guys go now.
Of course.
On the Patriots side, Devonte Parker stepped up, 5 catches, and all 5 of his catches went for 24 plus yards. So he caught 5 balls, went well over 100 yards. It's a reminder that Devonte Parker is pretty good. It's also a reminder that this Baltimore pass defense is shaping up similar to last year's. And I thought that with healthier corners, they'd be better off than last year. It's looking so far through 3 weeks like it's going to, again, be a strong matchup for our passing offenses.
Yeah, it was nice to see Parker. I feel like is the most talented receiver on the team. He's been banged up. He's kind of like a journeyman, I guess. But it's nice to see him play well there. I have a bunch of him on like early best ball teams. But other than that, man, this team is just has no talent. Like just in the passing game, another week. Hunter Henry 1 target. Like, what happened to him? He was double-digit touchdowns last year. JuJu Smith 4 targets. So much for the using the tight end in this passing game. And now Mac Jones is banged up. So we'll see. Again, this is an offense to generally fade. You're not going to want to start anybody on them, even though they're going to stink and they're going to be playing from behind. It's like they still their running backs are too involved on this team to get anything going in the passing game.
It's like a best ball team in real life. They're like, we don't know who exactly is going to lead every week. We're just going to get a bunch of guys that have done stuff, and then we'll see who scores the points.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, I just got an update. Mac Jones has a pretty severe high ankle sprain, so we'll see what this offense looks like moving forward. But boy, they're just not the same without the system there playing quarterback.
Yeah, do they have Brian Hoyer there still? Is that who the backup is?
Look it up. It doesn't even matter. That doesn't even matter. Mac Jones is so bad at it anyways. Like, it's like so bad.
The backfield is certainly the part that's worth paying more attention to. Yeah, it is Brian Hoyer still. Bailey Zappi is on the team. He's a rookie as well. So we'll see exactly who the fill-in would be, but probably Brian Hoyer. The backfield, though, is worth noting. Ramondre Stevenson has now had 2 straight games where he easily played more snaps than Damien Harris. So if you look at the touches, it looks like they were pretty close. So you could say, oh, it's still either way between them. But Ramondre Stevenson played a lot more snaps than Damien Harris in this one. It's been 2 straight weeks where he played at least 15 more snaps than Harris, and also 2 straight weeks in which he more than doubled Harris's pass routes. So, it's not safe. It's still New England. We could easily see it switch back in week 4 just because it seems like right when we think we have things figured out, Belichick's like, nah, you don't have to be figured out. Shut up. But based on what we've seen the past 2 weeks, it's Stevenson over Damien Harris right now, which is, of course, what we all came to expect by the buzz and more so the buzz than the usage in the preseason.
Yeah, and just also watch, like, Stevenson's just a better player. He's more explosive. It's nice to see some sort of rational coaching. Only 2 running backs touch the ball this week. Stevenson's running all the routes. He got 5 targets. That's how it should be. So if they're only using 2 backs there, they're both flex options. Or Stevenson, was probably an RB2 option. So that's fine. They're both usable if they're just using 2 of them.
Yeah, both did score yesterday. They've got the Packers, Lions, and Browns coming up, so nothing overly scary on the running front. And I mean, if it's Brian Hoyer, you got to figure they're only going to lean even further on the run. So
sure,
we'll see where things go with these guys. Bengals 27, Jets 12. Tyler Boyd had the biggest fantasy day, but it was kind of fluky with a 56-yard catch and run touchdown. Playing time was right there, but he's 4th on the team in targets in the game. So, nice when Tyler Boyd shows up. It should just be on your best ball teams unless you really need that receiver help. Jamar Chase, only 29 yards on 6 catches, did score a touchdown to save his fantasy day. 3 more targets than anybody else in this game, though. So it's one of those games you're just going to have to deal with that. You're going to get those from Jamar Chase sometimes, even if it's not facing a good defense. And then T. Higgins was good. 5 catches, 93 yards, 7 targets. So things pretty much going how we expect them to go with these Bengals receivers in an upside matchup for everybody.
Yeah, Higgins was awesome. I thought it was knocked out there for a second. I went on a beautiful deep ball catch that he had coming off a concussion from last week. I'm like, oh no, but Higgins looks great. They were going to him early. He gets, Jamar Chase takes up so much attention that Higgins is just, even though he saw 3 less targets, he had 5 for 95 or something. I think had a beautiful touchdown catch the back of the end zone that they didn't call it a touchdown, even though 99% of both of his feet were in the end zone. I still think it was 100%, but we'll see. But yeah, so Higgins looked great. Boyd, I just love Tyler Boyd's game. He's kind of lost on this team of alpha receivers, but yeah, Boyd still isn't startable. Like you said, he's like a little slot guy. I think he had a touchdown called back too, to Tyler Boyd did. But yeah, so you're still starting Chase. You're still starting Higgins. It's been disappointing with Chase, but he did save his day with that little 1-yard touchdown catch. But that's what you're going to get. 1 week's one receiver, kind of the other week's the other receiver as far as big plays goes.
That was my one hesitation on Chase heading into the season. Was I wouldn't be shocked if by the end of the season T. Higgins outscores him.
Yeah.
So in light of that, it makes me more interested in the guy that's going a round and a half, 2 rounds later.
Sure.
Joe Mixon was the really disappointing one here, though. 12 carries to Samaje Perine's 9. And Samaje Perine siphoned a touchdown catch on the first possession of the game. There's no business with Perine being in the game at that point. The usage, however, overall was right in line with the previous 2 games. So it's one of those where you have to say this sucked, but it shouldn't change how you use Joe Mixon going forward.
Yeah, 26 routes run, 6 targets on those 26 routes. It's fantastic. He still got 12 carries. Like 12 carries and 6 targets should be fine, for maybe you may want a couple more carries, but carries aren't, it depends on what they are. Are they carries at the goal line, or they carries at midfield? So yeah, you do want a little bit more usage out of that, but it's just another example of a star this week, just not coming through on the stat sheet there, not getting, Samaje Perine ran out. I think he had their last 4 or 5 carries trying to run out the clock at the end of the game. So disappointing there that Mixon couldn't get those points at the end, but obviously you're starting him and you like to see all those targets.
And you always hate to hear the name Samaje Perine.
I know.
On the Jets side, Breece Hall played 6 more snaps than Michael Carter. He ran 10 more routes than Michael Carter. I wonder if we had a flippening here.
Flippening. Good. We should have a flippening. Hall looked great, even at a nice run up the middle there. And he, I mean, Hall, it should be flipped. Just when everyone's, just when all the numbers are pointing towards, oh, no, this is Michael Carter's backfield. I think the very next week it's Hall's. Hall did have a drop. It was a little bit behind him, but I don't think anyone's questioning Hall's hands after all the catches that he's had this year. So yeah, we'll see how this keeps going. Hopefully, they keep doing this with Breece Hall getting 11 targets. That's like his second. I think week 1 he had 10 or 11 targets too. So 11 targets, 8 carries. We absolutely love it. So great to see.
Through 3 games now, we got a 5-target lead for Hall. So he beat Michael Carter by 9 targets yesterday. So, we'll see if that holds out, but that's why it matters that he ran 10 more routes than Michael Carter in this one. So it might well be the Jets switching to this guy that they just drafted in the 2nd round, working ahead of Michael Carter and having Michael Carter work as the RB2. Probably more importantly, Breece Hall also leads Michael Carter by 0.9 yards per rush, 2.1 yards per catch. So he's more efficient than Carter so far on those touches. So, we'll see. One game is not enough to say this is how it's going to happen going forward, but it could be the start of the way we were hoping that it would go going forward.
Yeah. Yeah, more efficient is just code for he's better, right? So Hall is better than Michael Carter. Yeah, the only thing that's annoying is Flacco's not going to be the starter there forever. You're going to get Zach Wilson. Like, there's no way that Wilson's going to check it down as much as Joe Flacco does. So that might be better for the Jets receivers, but it's probably going to be worse for the Jets running backs as far as targets go.
Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore matching 10 targets in this one. Moore continued to be on the field the most among Jets wideouts, but it's definitely worth noting that Wilson's 10 targets came on 37 routes, according to the PFF numbers. Moore's 10 targets came among 56 routes, according to those PFF numbers. So, they're even ultimately in targets in this game, but the fact that Garrett Wilson is getting targeted at such a higher rate versus when he's on the field continues to point to him being the favorite right now. Now, the caveat is we haven't seen Zach Wilson start a game yet. It's been 3 games, Joe Flacco. The Jets are hoping Zach Wilson is back for this 4th game. So we'll see. Maybe things change as far as who's the favorite receiver, but it also might just be that the offense favors Garrett Wilson because he's emerged as the bigger talent than Elijah Moore. And not to say anything bad about Elijah Moore, but, this is a top 10 pick. So it's not shocking if Garrett Wilson is just the best receiver among Jets.
Yeah, and Wilson also came out of this game for a little bit with it was supposed to be like a rib injury. He got hit pretty good coming over the middle on a play. So I think that's why his snaps and routes were down. He also he ran an out route later on in the game from about midfield that the pass was just, I don't know if it got glanced off the defender's hands or he dropped it because the defender kind of flashed in front of him, but he just missed a 50-yard touchdown where if he catches it, it's one of those where the defender jumps it. If he catches it, he's gone down the sideline. So he just missed out in a big game from Garrett Wilson. But continue to start him with confidence because he's just been so good.
Mm-hmm. Tyler Conklin, another 8 targets in this one, caught all 8 of them for 84 yards. So I might stop short of saying start with confidence, but Tyler Conklin's looking like somebody right around that tight end 12 area that makes sense.
Yeah, why start Kyle Pitts when you can start Tyler Conklin? You know what I mean?
That's right. And we'll see again where things go with Zach Wilson, but it's been nice. And it seemed like a mistake when the Jets signed both of these tight ends in free agency. It looks like clearly now that CJ Uzomah was the bigger mistake between the two. We'll see once he's healthier how the targets go between them. But for now, you got to like having Ty Conklin as an option, especially if you headed into the season counting on Cole Kmet. Titans 24, Raiders 22, 10 targets apiece for Devonte Adams and Mac Hollins in this one. And as you would expect, Devonte Adams caught 5 of them for 36 yards and 1 touchdown, while Mac Hollins exploded 8 for 158 and a touchdown.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, I didn't get a chance to watch this game live. I went back and watched it this morning. And of course, I look at the box. I'm like, of course, Mac Hollins they got to get Mac Hollins the ball. They got to get him involved. But then I watch him, like, he is awesome. He has been really, really, really good. You know, he's jumping over guys. He's getting open. You know, it's not just fluky stuff. Now I know why they were targeting him. So Hollins looked great. It's bad news for all the other pass catchers there because he's worth throwing to, like when Hunter Renfrow comes back, and he's getting a lot of Darren Waller's targets too. So it's like, it's good news for Carr and the Raiders, but bad news and good news for Matt Collins, but bad news for everybody else.
I will say that Matt Collins has had moments where he has looked very good for the Eagles and then for the Dolphins, and neither of those teams hung on to him. So I wouldn't go overboard, but I do think that he's worth rostering in plenty of places right now. He's certainly no worse than, DJ Chark, Josh Reynolds, KJ Osborne, that range of players. He's not likely to be a difference maker for your season going forward, but I mean, he could be what Zay Jones was down the stretch at the end of last season for the Raiders.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you're not going to start him with confidence, but he's just a thorn. If he's going to get 9 targets or even 7 targets every week, he's a thorn in the side of every other player there.
Darren Waller has ceded playing time to Foster Moreau in 2 straight games now, checked in well behind Davante Adams and Mac Hollins in snaps, closer to them in routes, but still trailing in that category yesterday. It's disappointing for a guy that just got paid by the team. Didn't they finally give him the extension?
Yeah. They give it to him like a couple days before the season. Yeah, it's just so weird. It's so weird how these teams just love to do stuff like that. Yeah, you got to get Foster Moreau for 4 targets for sure. For sure. So, I mean, we'll see. Hopefully Waller can just be more efficient. Hopefully he can get some red zone or some end zone targets there. Towards the end of the game, they did go to Waller. It was tipped at the line. So there was a miscue there. But I mean, Waller's still obviously a top 5 talent at the position.
I mean, you'd like to see some regression toward more playing time for Darren Waller here and less for Foster Moreau. But if things don't change in that area, I think it's going to be a situation where we wait for a big game or two and then try to shop him pretty hard.
Yep.
Josh Jacobs controlled the backfield once again, despite the illness that had him questionable and traveling later than the rest of the team. Once again, nothing special numbers wise. So, I mean, really, this season is going exactly how I thought it was going to go for Josh Jacobs, where he's controlling the backfield because everybody else is not that good, and he's still doing nothing exciting because he's Josh Jacobs.
Yeah. He was ruled down at the half-yard line on a play, so he almost got into the end zone on one, and he looked good. He was sick. He wasn't going to play. He looked fine. He looked, he was running the ball well. But yeah, that kind of being there was a couple this game. Treylon Burks went down at the half-yard line. Derrick Henry went down at the half-yard line, and none of those guys, including Jacobs, were able to kind of get their touchdown that they kind of earned there. But it's amazing the difference how a half a yard can make or break your fantasy day. So, but yeah, Jacobs looked fine. We can do with Jacobs, as a 1-2 with just dealing with Brandon Bolden. Even though Bolden did get two targets, Jacobs saw 5 with 13 carries. Like, fine. The range we were taking him, like you were getting him. I remember doing a bunch of drafts with you at the end of the season. You were getting like the 8th round. Like, yeah, we'll take that. We'll take 13 carries and 5 targets in this offense in the 8th round. So he's been fine. He just kind of got unlucky there without getting that touchdown.
I would like to think that if I were a football coach, I would try to give it to that guy on the next play, but that might just be me, the fantasy player, talking.
Right. That's right.
And just to note, Zamir White did absolutely nothing despite Josh Jacobs coming into this game with an illness. So stop holding on to the Zamir White dream. On the Tennessee side, Derrick Henry, 143 total yards. It was just his 2nd career game of 5+ catches, his 5th career game of 50+ receiving yards. And 2 of those 5 were games where he just had one monster screen pass. So I think I needed this game, Adam, to remind me that even if it's not a dominating O-line, that Derrick Henry is still capable of that big game and is not like gonna totally let me down wherever I happened to, just go ahead and take him in round 2 because he fell to me.
I was just going to say that I'm not a Derrick Henry guy. I've got like 2 shares, and it's like mid-second round, late second round. Derrick Henry. But isn't it the weirdest thing that they get him involved in the passing game and he explodes and their offense looks way better? Like, weirdest thing that you would do something like that. Like we're not asking you to line him up in slot and have him run seam routes. Like, you can't throw him a screen pass, 2, 3, 4 of those a game. It's like, look what happened. He was unbelievable fantasy wise. He was unbelievable during the game. Again, he scored, but he also had another one where he went down at the half yard line, and then Tannehill's like, I'll take it from here, big dog, and falls in from the half yard line on nobody's fantasy roster. So yeah, it's like, get the guy involved but this is why we weren't drafting him, because the coaches are dumb when it comes to stuff like this. And and injuries, and he's older and stuff like that. But man, if Henry gets 5 targets a game, he's an absolute smash.
My super flex tourney entries like Ryan Tannehill running that ball into the end zone, by the way.
Yeah, there you go.
Treylon Burks. I think the biggest takeaway for me from this game on either side is Treylon Burks finally led the Titans in route the first time. I say finally, it's week 3. So it's not like it was a huge wait, but he came away with 2 targets. So it's disappointing if you played him at all, which you probably shouldn't have been doing. Trailed 4 teammates in that category, but led the team in routes. And that's really what we've been waiting for, because that unlocks the possibility of Treylon Burks being the lead receiver for this team in any given week, which probably should happen more often than not the rest of the way.
Yeah, and again, he was one down at the half yard line. Like, he could have totally scored, and that would have saved his fantasy day if you did have to start him. But yeah, that's what you want to see out of these rookie receivers that everyone was kind of dogging during the preseason. Oh, he's not, he's not this, he's not that. Well, let's just let him develop a little bit here and let him get into the offense. So yeah, it was good to see him lead the team in routes run. Woods looked great too. Woods looked really good. He had not that it matters for fantasy for most people, but he had a nice punt return. He looks back from the injury. He's seen 6 targets. So overall, a good day for Robert Woods. But yeah, it'd be nice to see Burks get a couple more targets.
Eagles 24-8 over the Commanders. Philly offense looks excellent. We expected that at this point. Devonte Smith right with AJ Brown again in targets for the second straight week, actually beat him in targets 12-10 for the first time this season. Huge game off of that. It looks now like we should expect things to be a little bit closer to the target split of week 2 and now week 3 versus the dramatic gap that was between AJ Brown and the other Eagles in week 1.
Yes. Yeah. It was good to see. This offense can just be so explosive. I mean, there's so much talent there. It's unbelievable. They can beat you any way they want to beat you. So, Devonta Smith, he's a guy that's been killing me as far, like, I have him on a couple teams and like as my wide receiver 4, and I just haven't started. I didn't start, week 1. I'm like, good. I'm vindicated. I wasn't a Devonta Smith guy this year. Thought there were just too many weapons, and Hurts is more of a running quarterback. I was like, great. So I definitely didn't start on week 2, explodes. Didn't start on week 3, explode. He's a guy that's you're just going to have to play now. He's just proven it that he's worth starting every single week because he has these massive games. And I mean, jump ball. It wasn't like broken coverages either, stuff like that. I mean, he was mossing people in the back of the end zone for touchdowns, deep balls, jumping up over guys. He looks really, really good. So, so kudos to this offense getting him involved.
And the part that we knew he was really good. The parts we didn't know were, how is the target split going to go now that they have AJ Brown, and is Jalen Hurts going to be efficient enough to help Devonte Smith produce even if he doesn't get 10 plus targets? And it looks like the answer to both of those 2 questions is positive for Smith. He caught all 7 of his targets in week 2. He caught 8 of 12 yesterday. Jalen Hurts has been terrific throwing so far. And like I said, we've got 3 games now. 1 had AJ Brown way ahead of everybody else in targets. The other 2 had AJ Brown right with Devonte Smith. Yesterday, Dallas Goedert was trailing the guys versus week 2, where he was right with them as well. He left for a bit with the shin injury. So, we'll see exactly how Dallas Goedert relates to them. But it seems like we should expect it to be similar to, I guess, like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, where in week 1, we saw things go way in Hill's favor. It's caught up over the past 2 weeks between him and Waddle. It looks like that kind of situation. 2 very good players who are both going to do fine to well on the target front.
Exactly. As being a big Goddard guy, I know we are. I mean, he scored, which is great. So he made his fantasy day, but I would like to see, only ran 23 routes. Like you said, he left a little bit with an injury, so that's not as high as it would have been. But to see Jack Stoll, I don't even know who that guy is. Get run 15 routes, get 2 targets. He had a long one down the sidelines, or was that Calcutta? I don't know which guy that was, but
I wasn't
it was
watching.
one of those tight end that looks like Dallas Goedert. But Goddard's still a fine start for sure. He looked great on his touchdown catch and run. This offense is really good. I want all the pieces of this offense for sure. And they're looking like a favorite in the NFC.
Yeah. Miles Sanders leads the backfield. It's not always going to be big numbers, but he's at least getting the work that you crossed your fingers hoping for if you drafted him. And then the defense is also looking very good. 9 sacks of Carson Wentz in this game. And, it's not really news, I guess, to shut down Carson Wentz at this point, but Washington scored plenty of points and had plenty of yards over the first 2 weeks. So it's a good performance coming off of the big performance against Minnesota. Curtis Samuel, target leader for the 3rd straight game, 10 of those in this game. We had 9 apiece for Terry McLaurin, JD McKissick. We had 8 for Jahan Dotson. It looks to me now, Adam, that JD McKissick has reclaimed the receiving back lead from Antonio Gibson. Not only did he beat him in targets in this one, was also well ahead of Gibson in routes for this game.
Yeah. The biggest note from this game was just the Eagles D line just dominated the line of scrimmage and the whole game. This offense was not able to do anything. I mean, he was, like you said, he was sacked 8 or 9 times. It was just brutal to watch. Gibson does save his day with a 3-yard touchdown, barely get in plunge for sure. And he still, I don't even know if he scored 10th, 11th fantasy points, but yeah, JD McKissick, if he's when the Redskins are playing for, I'm sorry, the Redskins. Oh no, I said it. When the Commanders are playing from behind, if McKissick is going to get in that role, which we thought he probably would, he's worth a flex start. Gibson's going to probably have to score to be worth an RB2 there. They'll probably be both flex starts. But yeah, disappointing outing for Gibson.
I would say if you can find any real trade value for Antonio Gibson right now, go ahead and take it. He's RB12 in PPR points. His yards per carry are 3.1 now. That marks a 2nd straight year where he has dropped significantly in that category. Like I mentioned, week 2, we could say, yeah, JD McKissick got the targets here, but the routes were still favoring Antonio Gibson. That changed in week 3. So it doesn't look like Washington wants Antonio Gibson to be that heavily involved in the passing game like he was in week 1. And we still have Brian Robinson on the way back. We don't have any idea yet what Brian Robinson's going to look like, but there are positive reports of his progress. And of course, right before the season, it looked like Washington was hoping that Brian Robinson would be the lead back ahead of Antonio Gibson. So right now I'd be stashing Brian Robinson. I would be trying to shop Antonio Gibson, not like giving him away for whatever the best offer is, but if you can get anything of value, I would go ahead and move on.
Yeah. And again, like he did get that score at the end of the game, which, it counts, right? They had him in there. They handed it off to him. He scored. And he still, he finishes RB25 in a really bad league. I mean, he finished ahead of ETN, Akers, Javonte Williams, James Conner, like those guys we were all starting. So he certainly didn't kill you, and you were probably drafting him well past RB25. So again, he's been fine for sure. For the people who've started in the first 3 weeks, but you kind of see when he gets in these game scripts, man, like he's going to have to get that touchdown to kind of make his day even remotely startable.
Yeah, if a guy is producing, if his good week is 28 yards and a touchdown, then 38 yards and a touchdown, then that's
right.
Somebody you want to sell before those touchdowns disappear, because they're certainly not going to be there all the time. Jaguars 38-10 over the Chargers. If I wrote out all of the possible outcomes in this game, that would be the first one that I crossed out. I mean, I wouldn't have been shocked if it was a close game and the Jaguars edged them out, but 38-10, this is nuts. This might be like, I know that we had Justin Herbert's rib issue, but this might be the Jaguars saying, we're here. We're not that team that you're used to. We've got some players and we actually know how to play offense now because our coach is a human.
That's right. Yeah, that was one of my notes too. The Jags offense is for real, man. They're able to run it. They're able to throw it. They've got a good tight end. They've got a bunch of different receivers that they're using. They're not, it's not like they have the one guy where if you shut them down, they can't go other places. Everyone's showing up for them. And the Herbert thing, like Herbert looked fine. Like he looked mobile. He was throwing the ball fine. Like the Jaguars, I think are for real for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, Justin Herbert wasn't playing defense, so that certainly
Right.
wasn't a factor in Jacksonville scoring all these points. And so, there are a few different takeaways here. So first off, Travis Etienne got more work than he got in week 2, but things are continuing to trend negative for him because even though he got more touches, more playing time than week 2, still beneath week 1, where he actually played more snaps than James Robinson and just lost out on touches. James Robinson has since played more than Travis Etienne in each of the past 2 games. And he's got a 50-yard touchdown run against the Chargers, 100 yards rushing in that game. He also caught all 3 of his targets. He's running more routes than Travis Etienne. So even if we believe that Etienne is the higher ceiling receiver, that doesn't matter if James Robinson is getting more time on the field in even those situations. So I think James Robinson's ahead of Travis Etienne in the rankings going forward. I think Etienne is on benches, until something changes, like James Robinson getting hurt at this point. And, we just have to realize that Travis Etienne's not as good as what the summer buzz was.
Yep, exactly. Running back dead zone. Another victim of the running back dead zone. He's just not as involved. And yeah, like you said, it's James Robinson's backfield. I got Etienne didn't look bad. He's just not getting the explosive plays. James Robinson, I mean, most of his stuff came in that long, was it fourth and short, I think it was. And he busts, through the line and there's nobody there. There's no safety there because he's up at the line of scrimmage. But again, it's just Robinson. You got to stop making, I have to stop making excuses for why Robinson's putting up fantasy points and just like, okay, he's just going to do it every single week. So, yeah, start Robinson with confidence and Etienne, good luck.
Yeah, I mean, last week for me, it was like, yeah, he got the yards and he scored, but he had the one long touchdown. Otherwise, his efficiency stunk. I mean, you could say that again, but I'm not going to keep saying it because if you keep doing it game after game, then it's suddenly not a thing. And, the thing about it's always dangerous to start doing but if you take away the one big play, the rest of it looked like that. That's true with a lot of running back games. I mean, good running backs, bad running backs, good teams, bad teams. Like you would have to take away everybody's top play for the week to be able to actually say anything comparatively there. So, I know even when I do that it's dangerous. And I'm changing my own thinking on James Robinson going forward. And this isn't even a situation like with the Jets where, we think Breece Hall is the better player and we're waiting for Michael Carter to lose some work. Like this is a situation where James Robinson's already spent 2 years as a lead running back in the NFL. Travis Etienne came in looking like a complimentary player, maybe somebody who could be the leader of a backfield committee. So there's no reason for us to believe that at some point the Jaguars are just going to flip the playing time and make Robinson the complement here. The other guy to change thinking about right now is probably Trevor Lawrence. He's sitting 11th among quarterbacks in fantasy scoring right now. And really, he had a couple of missed touchdown opportunities in week 1 against Washington. So he could be even higher. He came into the season, somebody in like the QB 14, maybe 15 range that we were hoping was going to turn into a top 12 QB. He looks like the guy that we were hoping that he would become, especially after this week's performance against the Chargers.
Yeah, no, he looks great. This is almost like his rookie year too, because he doesn't. It's like you get rid of that disaster of a head coach organization that he had last year. So it's almost like he's like relearning everything. He looks good. Looks poised in the pocket. He's delivering the ball. They got some weapons for him. So he has that rushing upside. He almost had a rushing score today too, or yesterday. So yeah, no, and I was nervous I benched him in some spots this week because I was nervous about this Chargers defense, so no, he was up to the task today, and he's going to be a borderline QB1 moving forward.
Got that matchup at Philly next week that was tough for the Vikings and Washington the past 2 weeks. So it might be a week where if you have two guys in that range, you still lean away from Trevor Lawrence. But beyond that, Houston and Indy look good. And I would say in general, I like Trevor Lawrence moving forward. We got a question on YouTube from Jared Hatfield saying that he has Trevor Lawrence on his bench. He has Patrick Mahomes as a starter. Is it crazy to consider moving Mahomes to see what I can get or just move Lawrence? Now, I would say, first of all, that either one is tradable because all quarterbacks are tradable except maybe Lamar Jackson right now. But the thing that might seem crazy is, yeah, put Mahomes on the block because Trevor Lawrence can play. I think that's where we're at. I think there's a chance that Trevor Lawrence performs as a top 12 quarterback going forward. And that's really the thing. It's not to say Trevor Lawrence is just as good as Patrick Mahomes now. It's to say the QB 10 is probably not all that different from the QB 5 going forward. So I think that you would be able to get a whole lot more for Patrick Mahomes in trade than you would for Trevor Lawrence. So I would certainly be willing to shop Mahomes and see what I can get right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can trade Mahomes and don't get another quarterback in return. Don't like downgrade at quarterback and upgrade somewhere else. Get a straight up skill guy for him or two, and then just pick up another quarterback off waivers and stream him and Trevor Lawrence, and you'll be better off.
Right. There's probably guys like Marcus Mariota, Jared Goff sitting on the waiver wire that can be the insurance quarterback for bad matchups or if something bad happens to Trevor Lawrence. The wideouts, it was Zay Jones's turn here. 11 targets, 10 for 85 and a touchdown. Christian Kirk, 9 targets, 6 for 72 and a touchdown. There was a touchdown for Marvin Jones as well. No more than 3 targets for everyone else. So it was, it's going to be these 3 guys leading the way. We'll see whether Zay Jones stays ahead of Marvin Jones. Christian Kirk's the sure bet, I think, here. And then the other 2 guys are like, if you need a wideout, then Jacksonville might be turning into the kind of offense where you can consider that guy, a weekly wide receiver 4 consideration.
Yeah, this is tough. Like you said, Kirk's I'm starting every week. But the rest of the guys, you're kind of mixing and matching, Zay Jones, who saw that coming so wild. I the high stakes matchup where the guy didn't have Keenan Allen because he's hurt and he wins. Because of course he's got Zay Jones. Like he wins because he loses. It's so sick. That was the type of week it was. But yeah, you're never gonna know who to start out of those other guys. But Kirk, I'm locking in every single week, 70 snaps, which is 12 more than the next guy. And he's seeing the consistent target share every single week. So Kirk's locked in, and the rest of the guys coin flip.
I'll tell you who had Zay Jones this week was my best ball roster, so they were pretty happy
there you go.
with your opponent. Evan Ingram had just 3 targets in this one, still with the wide receivers in playing time, though, actually identical to Zay Jones in playing time and routes against the Chargers. I mean, obviously a disappointing game if you used him, but I don't think anybody here was saying this is going to be a big week for Evan Ingram. I would not expect the Chargers to be a positive matchup for tight ends this season.
Yeah, he had a carry, which is cool. He also had a touchdown not called back, but he was, dragged his feet, like was inches away from a really great catch and a touchdown. So again, he could have had a really good game there. But yeah, Ingram again, he's, tight end, 8 to 12 in that range, and you're streaming him or you're starting him almost every single week.
On the Chargers side, I'm not sure how much we can take away from this. I think the biggest thing for me is what the hell is up with Austin Eckler's usage? We had
no idea.
2 carries for Austin Eckler at halftime of a game where his quarterback was questionable with a rib injury coming in. We had 2 Austin Eckler carries in the first half. We had 4 for the game. We had 3 Sony Michel carries in the first half, 5 of those for the game, 5 targets for Eckler in the first half. So it's not like he wasn't in the game. They're just not handing in the ball for whatever reason.
Yeah, if you'd have just showed me like the box score where it was just like who ran the routes, who got the targets, who got the carries, I could have just looked at that and told you that the Chargers got crushed. Like, it's 4 carries for Eckler, like 8 targets, and a couple of them were on like the last drive of the game when it was like they were already out of it. Like, I get, he did run 26 routes, which is great, but I get like wanting to keep him fresh and healthy and not wanting to overuse him because he is small. I totally get that, but he's got to be more involved, especially when you're losing like that early. He's your best playmaker, and then it didn't involve Mike Williams either. I mean, 5 targets, 1 that makes another insane great catch in the end zone on a jump ball, but he's not getting the targets either. It's just it's just incompetent coaching yesterday. Didn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, it's baffling usage for Eckler, especially through their first 3 possessions. He had the 2 carries, and I mean that's not even a time where they were losing or anything. They're just like,
Right.
We don't need to run the ball with Austin Eckler. And I'm not an establish the run guy, but if anything, this game would have called for trying to get things going like that to take some pressure off of Justin Herbert. So I don't know. It's worrisome that we have questions about Austin Eckler's usage through 3 weeks, because this is not the first game where it was something questionable with the way they're deploying him. Rams 20, Cardinals 12. Adam, I came into this season wary of the Arizona offense. I've been vocal in that I do not believe in Cliff Kingsbury. The offense has been worse than I feared. I mean, Kyler Murray went over 300 yards passing. That's because he threw 58 passes. He came out of this game with 58 pass attempts and 0 touchdowns. I mean, it's bothersome at this point.
Yeah, it's almost impossible for that to happen. But yeah, he didn't have any touchdowns at all. He didn't have any rushing touchdowns. He didn't have any passing touchdowns. It's just, yeah, the offense is not great right now. I mean, I know that the Rams can have a good D, but didn't make much sense here. Greg Dortch gets 10 targets. I mean, I guess when you've got a couple injuries there, you got to throw to somebody. Ertz did see 10 and Brown saw 17, so that makes sense. But it's just, yeah, they're not efficient. It's Kyler's not throwing on time very often. They're snapping the ball. It's one read. It's not there. And then he's like, running around. He wasn't really running the ball either. Like they came out in the second half, were better. They were running the option, but he kept giving it up to James Conner for like 3-yard gains, So yeah, the offense just overall looks way out of sync. Kind of like the Denver Broncos, almost as bad as the Denver Broncos offense, but we'll get there. But yeah, it's certainly not time to panic, because Kyler Murray can, with the rushing yards and all that, can usually make up for it. But yesterday was not one of those days.
He's somebody I'd be willing to trade if I have him, though, if opportunities arise, because it's not a group I believe in. And we've seen Kyler Murray. We saw Kyler Murray last year run the ball less than he did the year before. So it might be a business decision at this point where he is trying to protect his body for the long term.
Could be.
James Conner, numbers obviously disappointing, but I'm just glad he made it through this game healthy. Behind James Conner, Benjamin had 9 opportunities versus just 2 for Darrell Williams. Now, we don't really know what that means for if and when James Conner is out, because maybe Darrell Williams is more of a James Conner replacement in that case. And Benjamin is still the complement, but it's at least worth noting as we keep trying to read that backfield.
Yeah, I mean, Connor's clearly the guy there. I don't like the backfield behind him there. Like, again, if Connor goes down, they're going to split. And the offense doesn't look great right now. So it's not like they had this elite offensive line where they can just pound the ball. So obviously every running, you want to roster these running backs and stuff like that. But I don't feel even if Connor went down, I wouldn't feel comfortable starting either of these guys.
Yeah, I agree. Rams offense was also disappointing, considering that the Chiefs and Raiders each had their way with the Cardinals the previous 2 weeks. My biggest takeaway, though, for fantasy use is that Cam Akers pulled even with Darrell Henderson in playing time, dominated the carries 12-4 between them, produced on those carries as well, 61 yards, 5.1 yards per rush, and a nice 14-yard run for a touchdown. 1 total target between the guys. So Darrell Henderson still led in routes between them, but there was 1 total target, and that's 2 straight weeks now where Henderson having that route lead didn't matter.
Yeah, it's clearly leaning back towards Cam Akers. They week 1 they just wanted to maybe ease him in, I guess. Even he barely played, and so but yeah, Akers is the guy there now, especially when they're leading game scripts like this. The offense, again, this offense didn't look great either, but they did get some fantasy points on the board for our guy Cooper Kupp, but overall the offense was not looking good.
Mm-hmm. So let's move on from that to the Falcons 27, Seahawks 23. And I have to give you a hat tip to start off this one, Adam, because according to PFF's Timo Riske, Falcons are 7th best in the league in EPA per pass play so far. That, of course, again, is expected points added. So the Falcons are among the best teams in terms of what they're adding to scoring potential per pass play, with that Marcus Mariota, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts led passing game.
Is that a backhanded compliment? If you compliment me with analytics, is
No,
that a
that was a wide
No,
open compliment. Nothing backhanded about it.
You compliment me with analytics. That's a slap in the face. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, no, it's just their offense looked better. I still don't. It's such a confusing thing to me. I'm going to be on this all year until Pitts goes to the moon. Guy comes out with like 3 catches in the first 2 drives, ends the game with like 5 catches. Doesn't make any sense. Leads the team with 8 targets too, like 8 targets to 6 for London, to 2 for Zacchaeus. Like they didn't throw the ball a lot, but when they did, Pitts was heavily involved. But it hasn't hit yet. It was fine, but they're just not targeting him down around the end zone. But again, it's Patterson, it's Pitts, it's London. Those are the guys that matter. They're using those guys. At least they did in week 3. But Pitts is running routes. Although this game he only ran 17 routes and 38 snaps, but they got him the ball when he was running routes. So we're just waiting for that big explosive Pitts week.
You love that he led the team in targets. You love that he produced on those targets, the 5 for 87, like you said. His playing time actually decreased. According to the PFF numbers, the team played 74 snaps in 2 wide receiver sets through the first 2 weeks, and Pitts played 64 of those 74 snaps. Against Seattle, he played 19 of the 35 snaps in those sets with 2 wide receivers. So he's spending less time in the wide receiver spots than a traditional inline spot. And he's also ceding inline snaps to another tight end on the team. So it's a positive, but there's also some negative in there. And it still makes Kyle Pitts much more of a sell once he does have a strong game than he is a hold, or even somebody that, I don't know, that I'm hopeful for delivering on where I drafted him this year.
Yeah, this might be, I want to say you got to wait till he scores, but this might be the week where it's like the edge of like, you can still, if you're going to sell him, now's the time, or you need to hope for a touchdown next week or a big game next week, because if he has another week like this, or another week like week 2, like where he's just not having that big high end tight end one week, it's going to be tough to sell him for what you want in return for him. I'm holding Pitts all year. I still believe in the talent. I still believe that they're going to get him involved more he just needs more red zone targets. They're getting down there. Patterson scoring on like 20-yard runs. London scored on the one target he got there inside the red zone. But I think touchdown regression is coming, I think.
Marcus Mariota, just 20 pass attempts in this one, so that didn't help the volume for people, although he did, as we said, have 8 targets for Pitts, 6 for Drake London. Threw for a touchdown, ran for another. Cordero Patterson, another big rushing day, 17 carries, 141 yards, 1 touchdown on the ground. Tyler Algier was next with 6 carries. We still just had 1 target for Patterson, 1 for Tyler Algier as well. Routes went 12 for Patterson, 8 for Algier, 2 for Avery Williams. So, combine those, and it was 12 for Patterson versus 10 for the other Falcons running backs. Still goofy usage, where you would figure they would want to run Patterson less and throw him the ball more, and that's not the case. That's part of what worries me about Pitts, is we say bet on the talent, and for me, it's definitely still a long-term bet on the talent, because I don't think Arthur Smith is going to be in Atlanta a whole lot longer. But for this year, like Cliff Kingsbury, he's somebody that I'm betting against, where that coaching factor matters.
Yeah, no, I get it. At least they're getting the ball though to Patterson one way or another. You know what I mean? So that makes sense. So it was nice to see Patterson and those 0 RB lineups being able to keep smashing for us, baby.
Seahawks side, Rashad Penny dominated backfield time, 14 carries for 66 yards, 1 target. So that's the kind of explosive, amazing game we can expect for the number 1 Seahawks back. It's why you shouldn't be excited about any of them. Geno Smith, though, 32 of 44 passing for 325 yards in this game. And of course, 23 of his 44 attempts went to either Tyler Lockett or DK Metcalf. So those are absolutely the only guys that you want to use among Seahawks. No other player on the team had more than 4 targets. Lockett and Metcalf both delivered in this game. Detroit's up next, so I think you can use both Lockett and Metcalf in the next game, and hopefully you don't have to use anybody else.
Yeah, that's what we told everybody last week. Not that it's, everybody knows this. It's just Lockett. It's just Metcalf. Right now, Metcalf is wide receiver 17 on the week. Lockett's wide receiver 20. You're fine with that. You were taking Lockett way past wide receiver 20. And Metcalf hit for you this week too. So yeah, as long as those are the guys getting the targets, they should be losing a lot of games because they stink. So Lockett and Metcalf, if they're both seeing double-digit targets, they can both be startable for you every week.
Packers 14, Bucks 12, and a crappy game to watch, I can say, because I was watching it. The running backs surprisingly quiet on the Green Bay side. The usage remained good. And split between them, so nothing changes there. Romeo Dobbs delivered, led the wide receivers in routes on the Green Bay side, caught all 8 of his targets, 73 yards, scored a touchdown. We also had a touchdown for Allen Lazard on 6 targets. Robert Tonyan had 7 targets. It was all short stuff. I would hope that Romeo Dobbs did enough in this game that he maintains a big role like that going forward. We watched Sammy Watkins hit IR heading into this game. Christian Watson was inactive for this game, so he should be back soon, but should still be Romeo Dobbs in a very prominent role over at least the next few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, as prominent as it's going to get there, I mean, they're a team built around kind of the running game, I feel like, and throwing to the running backs and stuff like that. You saw 24 carries between Jones and Dillon today. But yeah, Dobbs is, I think, the guy here. It would be nice to see him kind of take over this role because we know we're getting out of Lazard and Cobb and Juwann Winfrey, who had to get his 2 targets. So yeah, Dobbs looks good. And so it'd be nice to see him kind of take over this role and get his quarterback, his Hall of Fame quarterback, trusting in him.
Mm-hmm. And then Robert Tonyan, I mentioned 7 targets, so nice for him. Caught 6 for 37. Still just a 55.6% route rate, though. So I would hesitate to trust him too much going forward, but he's at least somebody potentially usable at a position that's had a lot of players emerge as not really usable early in the season. On the Bucs side, pretty much all the targets went to Russell Gage. 13 of the 42 Tom Brady pass attempts, 31% share there. Caught 12 of those for 87 yards and a touchdown. So the big yardage that Russell Gage is used to delivering for us. And Cole Beasley, by the way, 3 catches for 12 yards. So it was like, I think his ADOT was 7 inches.
Oh, there's a joke in there somewhere. But yeah, it's good for Russell Gage. At least doesn't make sense. Like, hey, he's the best healthy receiver. Let's get him involved. Their offense stunk all day anyways. Again, they're down so many injured O-linemen and receivers. It's like, let's just, they're just trying to get out of this game healthy, I'm sure. But Cole Beasley, his role could grow there with injured receivers. Evans will be back next week. He wasn't hurt. He was suspended. But, Brady loves those types of receivers, man, those short ADOT option route kind of slot guys, where as long as they're on the same page. So I think he's worth adding just as a holding stash and see what happens with the rest of this receiving core. If the receiving core is anywhere near healthy, I'm not starting Cole Beasley. But as long as there's injuries and stuff like that, I think he's worth having.
Yeah, it would have to be a pretty deep league for me to be looking at Cole Beasley, but certainly Russell Gage did what we were hoping. Julio Jones's injury sounds like it might be the kind of thing that doesn't necessarily keep him out, but dogs him all year. So we'll have to see how soon he can get back. I know we were kind of expecting an injury to probably dog him all year. And then, I mean, there's not a whole lot
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was saying he's just a guy we're just waiting. It's Sammy Watkins. We're just waiting for him to go on the IR, right? We're waiting for that, they're holding him out. You're never going to feel comfortable starting him. When you do, he's going to play 8 snaps and leave. Like, I don't know. I would be okay dropping Julio.
I would as well. Like, that's somebody that I wouldn't. I'd probably rather have Mac Hollins than Julio Jones going forward.
Sure. Yeah.
There's not a whole lot else worth talking about on the Bucs side. I think Leonard Fournette couldn't really get anything going efficiency wise, but controlled the backfield work once again.
Yeah, controlled the work. Rashad White's a high-end handcuff, worth obviously roster him if Fournette goes down. It was interesting to see Fournette's rushing prop for this game was like 75 yards. I was kind of surprised. It's tough for running backs to get 75 rushing yards these days, and with no kind of threat around him, and the Packers having a good defense. That kind of was shocking to me. But yeah, he's always going to get those six targets that kind of keep him alive.
Well, and that's the thing though, is the number was that high because he had 21 and 24 carries through the first 2 weeks. So, I mean, if you're getting 20, that's what, like 3.6, 3.8 yards per carry in that projection. He's been under 3 the past 2 weeks. So we'll see where things go. We love the work, but we do need some efficiency to support feeling good about starting Leonard Fournette. Final game was even worse than
Ugh.
Packers Bucks. Broncos 11, 49ers 10. That would have been a really exciting baseball game, but it was a garbage football game. And I don't know if these defenses are that good or if the offenses are just that bad. I think it's probably a combo of both of those things, because these are a couple of defenses we expected to be good heading into the season, but the offenses are just garbage right now. So let's go positive. We got George Kittle's season debut, 5 targets, 4 catches, 28 yards. Doesn't do much for us, but we at least have George Kittle back. Jeff Wilson Jr. did dominate the San Francisco backfield work, 41 snaps, 19 pass routes. The only other running back to play was Jordan Mason. He played 5 snaps, 2 routes, 1 carry. So I think we got less rushing work for Wilson than I would have guessed, especially based on how the game went, but he produced on it. He, led the backfield work by at least as much as we could have hoped. I think Jeff Wilson's a decent option going forward.
For sure. He's definitely a flex option. He's getting the workload of an, RB2 workload for sure. And we knew Garoppolo was going to come in here and he was going to make all of these guys like fantasy viable, right? He's going to give them opportunities to make plays. Debo was getting the opportunities. Also, they were running him. He gets 8 targets. Ayuk gets 8 targets and scores. So everyone's going to have, I think, more opportunities here without Trey Lance running all over the place. And Garoppolo, as much as people rag on him, he's not great. He stepped out of the end zone and hit a pick 6 all in the same play, which is sensational. But he knows how to run the offense. He knows where to go with the ball. So hopefully for the Kittle owners, you'll see a little bit more usage for him. But overall, he's able to kind of manage this offense. And this game was unwatchable. I mean, there's going to be games where they're going to be playing from behind most of the game, not at the very end. But hopefully the Niners can play get a better game script for these guys to get more catches.
Yeah, lackluster production from both Ayuk overall and Debo on the 8 targets apiece, but they're facing a defense that should be pretty good against the pass in Denver this year. So on the Denver offensive side, 3.1 yards per rush, 5.6 yards per pass attempt for a team that has Russell Wilson, Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon. It's just they suck. Jerry Jeudy did play in this game. He just missed a long connection late in the game. The ball was tipped by Charvarius Ward, so it wasn't really a drop. That certainly would have changed the numbers for him, would have inflated the numbers beyond what they should have been for Russell Wilson, who I'm done betting on the over for passing yardage on until he shows it for several weeks in a row. Really, I don't have a whole lot to take away from this offense in terms of what I'm changing, other than I was validated in sitting Russell Wilson for Marcus Mariota where I did this week.
Yeah, I started Mariota in a lot of leagues too. Fire Nathaniel Hackett. I'm going to start every time we talk about the Broncos this year. I'm going to start it with fire Nathaniel Hackett. Their team isn't going to even come close to reaching their potential while Nathaniel Hackett's back there. Next week, he's going to stop calling the plays because he doesn't know how to do that either. Just get rid of him. Russell Wilson doesn't look great at all. But you never know, like, is it the play calling? Is it like, it's just the whole thing is a mess to have all that talent. And it's just embarrassing. And they stinking, to be able to score there at the end is so stinking annoying because they didn't really deserve it. Jeudy, again, another bust week out of him after being hurt last week, saw 6 targets. I mean, all the targets went to Sutton and Jeudy, so that's good news. But, it was Russell Wilson was way off. He overthrew Jeudy. Jeudy also had a deep touchdown where it gets tipped right at the last second. Jeudy maybe still could have caught it. So that was a big play that would have saved his fantasy day. But another bad game for Jeudy. Not a good sign there. But the whole offense is just a mess.
Yeah, near even work split for Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon, as you feared if you were passing on Javonte Williams. And then Albert Okwuegbunam, third among Broncos tight ends in snaps in this game, did lead the group in routes, but only about 50% of Russell Wilson's total dropbacks. He trailed Kendall Hinton by 2 total routes. So, I mean, anything potentially usable in this offense, they're really trying hard to make unusable.
Did he have a catch, Alberto?
I don't believe so. I think he
Just
had 2
back-to-back
catches.
back-to-back zeros for Alberto, and it's just impossible.
Doing a killer Cole Kmet impression along the way.
That's right.
Well, I think that's a good place to leave it. Try not to use any Broncos because there's no silver lining here. They have talent, so at some point maybe they'll turn it around, but there's nothing to point to and saying this is why it's going to turn around in week 4.
Yep.
So head over to draftsharks.com now. You can see how we rank these guys in week 4 and going forward. We got rest of the way rankings that we'll be updating throughout the day. We have week 4 rankings hitting the site tomorrow. We have our free agent focus articles coming out over the next 2 days, both for regular size leagues and for deeper leagues. So whatever league you play in, we got you covered. And then it's our usual set of content throughout the week to try to help you out with all your various formats, DFS, underdog pick'ems, of course, full season. So you can actually head back to last week if you want and check out the buy, sell, hold report for some of the buy, sell, hold guys we talked about in this show. Some of those guys changed to this week. Not a whole lot, though. Most of the guys that I think we mentioned there actually had the kind of week that might help you do what you were looking to do, what we said to do with them from that. So not an obsolete article just yet. Check that out. See what kind of moves you can make this week. For my partner, Adam Krautwurst, and the rest of the Draft Sharks crew, I'm Matt Schauf saying thanks so much for swimming with us.